yesterday we have seen that there are broadly speaking there are three different types of regression. One is linear regression, non-linear regression, and logistic regression. And we have also seen that under the linear regression there are two different categories. One is uh, simple linear regression and another is multiple linear regression. Okay, so in case of usually in case of multiple linear regression, it is also applicable to simple linear regression, but actually in multiple linear regression it is more common. For example, you have some output or some y variable. Okay, for example, suppose it is the uh, the force, it is your output variable. Okay, and your input variables are, for example, speed, feed, and depth of cut. So that means they are actually the independent variables. Speed, feed, and depth of cut, they are, for example, your independent variable. Okay, so you are going to x1 is speed, x2 is speed, and x3 is depth of cut. And suppose you are going to check, you are going to find out the relationship between the force and the speed, feed, and depth of cut. Or you can also say that how speed, feed, and depth of cut, these independent variables are affecting the dependent variable called force. Okay, so in that case you will definitely find out the equation. Okay, your ultimate objective is to find out the constant term and also the coefficients for speed, feed, and depth of cut. And you will also check your p values, okay, to understand that which particular independent variable is really useful to predict the dependent variable. Okay, for example, you can see that here you can see a slide called how do I interpret the p values in linear regression analysis. You can see that constant term is given. Okay, the coefficient of east, south, north, these coefficients are also given. And you can see that the variable east, okay, it is 0.092. Usually the alpha value, it is chosen as 0.05. Okay, so your p value is greater than that, so you cannot reject your null hypothesis. Okay, so you can say that the effect of east on the response variable or the predict or the output or the dependent variable, that is not significant. Okay, so what you will do, you can neglect this variable, you can neglect this variable from your regression equation or multiple linear regression equation. Okay, whatever the variables you will have, you will find insignificant, those variables you can remove it out from the regression equation. This is one thing that that is the first part of today. Okay, this is one thing. Now we will move on to the next slide. Okay, so I have previously told you that the non-linear regressions, they are not very common, particularly for our research purpose. Okay, we basically deal with the linear regression. But after performing the linear regression, you will see that in your Minitab software or any StatGraphics or similar type of software, you will find that there will be an option called residual versus fit. This option you will be getting. Okay. So most of the time the researchers, they click this option and in the checkbox, and they get these kinds of results. Okay. So this kind of checking is actually necessary to, in order to confirm that your model fits the linear regression or your data fits the linear regression. Okay. What is the fitted value? You can see that along x-axis, the fitted value is plotted, or simply called it is the fit is plotted, and along y-axis the residuals are plotted. Okay. What is fit? Fit means, I have already told you that from the regression equation, okay, the regression equation that you will be finding based on your sample, you will put the values of the x's, okay, in the regression equation, and you will be finding the y value or the estimated value. So those estimated values are actually known as fitted value. Okay. And you are also having the actual value or the observed value from your data. Okay. So if you can find out the difference between your actual value and your fitted value or the estimated value, then you are going to find out your residuals, which is actually plotted, or which is actually expressed along y-axis. Okay. So you can see that there is these are very much scattered, this data. Okay. So you can say that your residuals or your the y value, it does not depend upon the estimated value or the fitted value. Okay. So this is random. Okay. So that's why it supports your linear regression. Okay. It means if you get a plot like or graph like this, residual versus split, it supports your linear regression, or it supports your linear assumption. Okay. So now you see, just conversely, you can see this graph, the residual versus fit. You can see that these data, they are not scattered like this, like the earlier site. There you can clearly see a pattern is there. So the residual actually depends upon the fitted value. Okay. So you cannot say that this is random or by chance. Okay. So it does not actually support your linear assumption, and you should uh, think about it, and you should decide, you should understand that the assumption may not be, it is not suitable for linear. It is, there are some non-linear kinds of things. That's why you are getting some patterns of the residuals depending upon your the estimated value. Okay. So what kind of non-linear, that you need to find out then. Okay. So that is actually actually huge task. You usually you don't get to these kinds of things. So that's why we are not discussing. But how to find out that, that is a big task, because it may not be non-linear. There can be different types of non-linear things, like quadratic, or it can be of any power. Okay. So this is another thing. So now I will be discussing about homoscedasticity and heteroscedasticity. Okay. So a critical assumption of the classical linear regression model is that the disturbances have all the same variances. When this condition holds, the error terms are homoscedastic, which means the errors have the same scatter regardless of the value of x. Okay. So you can see here, this is the example of homoscedasticity. Okay. Whatever, irrespective of the value of the x, you can understand that the error terms, they are actually the same, or the error terms are more or less constant. Okay. So this is actually homoscedastic condition which is actually desired. And when the scatter of the errors is different, varying depending on the value of one or more of the independent variables, the error terms are heteroscedastic. You can see that depending upon the value of x, the error terms are actually changing. Okay. So these kinds of things are actually, it is known as heteroscedastic, and that is actually unsatisfactory model. Actually, strictly speaking, this is not error terms we are talking about. This is we are basically talking about the residuals. Okay, because the errors you will not know. So you can think about that this is the, we are talking about the residuals, because why we are discussing about homoscedasticity and heteroscedasticity, because for some models or some tests, okay, we assume the homoscedasticity of our in our data. Okay, so that's why these two terminologies you should know. Then what is multicollinearity? Multicollinearity is when two of the independent variables are highly linearly related. Note that multicollinearity is not perfect multicollinearity. Perfect multicollinearity implies that the correlation coefficient is 1 in absolute value. Multicollinearity means that the correlation coefficient is high but not perfect between two dependent and random variables. Okay. Then singularity. Singularity in regression analysis, singularity is the extreme form of multicollinearity when a perfect linear relationship exists between variables, or in other terms when the correlation coefficient is equal to 1 or minus 1. Okay. So again we can see another, the next slide. What is multicollinearity? It is also written. The term independent variable means an explanatory variables is independent of the error term but not necessarily independent of other explanatory variables. And the definitions of perfect multicollinearity is exact linear relationship between two or more explanatory variable, and imperfect multicollinearity is two or more explanatory variables are approximately linearly related. Okay. So multicollinearity, actually it is why I am discussing this topic, because many times you will see that multicollinearity is actually considered, okay, or it is taken care of. For example, while applying structural equation modeling, the multicollinearity is actually taken care of. Okay. So what is multicollinearity? We have in case of the regression analysis, we have discussed about the relationship between the dependent variable and the independent variable. Okay. But it may so happen that suppose for a multiple linear regression, the explanatory variables that you are considering, that means the independent variables, okay, which is actually describing your the dependent variable. So those explanatory variables or those independent variables may have some correlation among them. Okay, so that is actually known as multicollinearity. And usually you will not find exact or perfect multicollinearity, but the imperfect multicollinearity you may find. Okay, and if you find that kind of things, you should there are some steps or there are some initiatives that you should follow, so that we can focus on when we will discuss about the structural equation modeling. During that time we can focus on that. Okay, but this is in general, this is known as multicollinearity. Then the auto correlation and moving average. Okay, see, this is a very important topic, though I am not going into the details of the autocorrelation and moving average. Okay, because this is actually not, this is the class's research methods. This is not focusing on the particular statistics or class or business statistics or something like that. But I have seen that in many interviews, okay, when you will face the interviews, be whatever be your background, be it marketing, finance, HR, or operations and supply chain, whatever be your background, some basic questions on statistics are asked. And one very common part is time series analysis. Okay, so you very often the interviewers, they ask on the time series analysis. So what is the autocorrelation? When you have a series of numbers where values can be predicted based on the preceding values in this series, the series is said to exhibit autocorrelation. That means when you determine, when you can find out your values, suppose you have a time series, okay, January data, February data, March, April, May, June, suppose these kinds of data you have, okay, for every year. Now when the data will be regressed by its own previous data, then we say that it exhibits the phenomena of autocorrelation. Okay, and what is moving average? A moving average is a technique often used in technical analysis that smooths price histories by averaging daily prices over some period of time, usually previous 3 days data. Okay, so what we do in case of moving average, some previous history oriented, suppose usually some previous 3 years data, okay, those are also actually taken care of. Okay, previous, suppose 3 periods data, okay, 3 periods data, or even you can use 4 periods data or 5 periods data, but usually the previous 3 periods data you actually consider. And there are different types of, I have given you one link, you can follow this link. Okay, but apart from that, also you will find on YouTube, there you will find different types of moving average. You will find that weighted moving average, because you cannot, weighted moving average is a kind of technique where you give more weightage to the current data and you give less weightage to the previous data. Okay, current past data you give more weightage and you give less weightage to the previous data. So that is known as weighted moving average. And also there is another moving average method which is called exponentially weighted moving average. Okay, so there are a lot of different techniques on moving average that you can search on YouTube, and you can note it down, because this is the time series analysis is very important for interview, because a lot of questions are asked on time series analysis. Okay, and suppose sometimes these two techniques are actually integrated, and which is known as ARIMA or ARMA, auto regressive integrated moving average. Okay, So now uh, I will discuss about logistic regression, but before logistic regression, uh, I should talk about another important concept that is known as uh, maximum likelihood estimation. Okay, so because maximum likelihood estimation, it's a prerequisite, you can say, of uh, applying or implementing the logistic regression. I'm just checking whether I have got those slides. Yes, okay. So maximum likelihood estimation. So Janani is asking, sir, what is stationarity? Stationary means that the nature of your data, that is not dynamic. Okay, sometimes you will have some data, suppose uh, you know some real time data which continuously those data are changed. Okay, for example, the stock market data, those are not stationary data. Okay, continuously you will see that those data will be changing. Okay, so those are not stationary. Anyway, so maximum likelihood estimation we are determining, we will now discuss. So in order to discuss about maximum likelihood estimation, first we should have a very clear concept about what is likelihood, or what is the difference between the probability and likelihood. I have previously told you that suppose this is the example of a continuous distribution, not a discrete distribution. Okay, the likelihood in this case, it is actually given by the y-axis value. Okay, or the probability density for a particular outcome, that is actually the likelihood value. And what is the likelihood function? Likelihood function will actually depend upon the type of distribution. So first of all, I would like to request all of you that I have given you, there are different types of distribution. I have given you some slides. Okay, there are some discrete variables, there are some continuous variables. Based on the discrete variables, there are some discrete distribution like binomial distribution and Poisson distribution. There are some other distributions like exponential distribution, Weibull distribution, normal distribution, standard normal or Z distribution, students T distribution, chi-square distribution, F distribution. And I have also given you different slides of binomial distribution, Poisson distribution. Okay, what is the formula for mean in case of binomial distribution? How can you calculate the standard deviation for binomial distribution, or in case of Poisson distribution, in case of exponential distribution? What are the differences between these things? So all these things you can, I am not going into that kind of things. Okay, because if I focus about all those distributions, if I want to discuss, it is very difficult to complete the syllabus. Okay, so but the basic things are already given in the PPT. Okay, so the characteristics of the distribution, I will request all of you to go through these slides and to have a general idea about, at least some basic idea about these distributions. Okay, you just go through these slides to have a general idea about these distributions and which particular distribution is used when which particular distribution can be used, you can have those kinds of idea if you go through those slides. Okay, all the distributions are not very important, but some of the distributions which I have mentioned here, okay, those distributions are very popular, and you can go through these distributions, that will suffice. Okay, so for example, suppose if you think about suppose the normal distribution, if you consider, okay, what is the likelihood function that is given as this by this is the uh, likelihood function. Okay, because why this is likelihood function? Because if you have the dependent values of the x, and if you know the shape parameters, okay, you can find out the values of your y. Okay, and I have already said that the length of y or the value of y, that is actually reflecting the likelihood for a given x. So that's why this is actually known as likelihood function. For this is actually the expression of the likelihood function for a normal distribution. Okay, so similarly, suppose if you consider the exponential distribution. Okay, so what is the formula for the exponential distribution? You can see that the formula for the exponential distribution, the function of x the function of x provided lambda, it is given as lambda into e to the power minus lambda x. Okay, this is the formula. Okay, and this is the likelihood function. Why it is likelihood function? Because if you know the value of x, or the value of x, if the value of x is given, and if you know the shape parameter lambda, then you can very easily find out the value of the y, which is actually reflecting your likelihood. Okay, so this is actually the likelihood function for the exponential distribution. Okay, now you can see that now, so you know about the likelihood function. Now you will ask one question, that what is, you are talking about likelihood function, and whenever I am seeing that this likelihood function, there is not only the terms of x, but also there are some other terms. Okay, for example, instead of x, you can see here that mu is there, sigma is there, and here also you can see this is the expression for normal distribution, and this is the log likelihood function, or the expression for the exponential distribution. And you can see there that the lambda is given there, and you are saying that mu, sigma, or here the lambda, these are actually known as the shape parameter. What is the shape parameter? Basically, suppose if you consider suppose some particular some distribution, for example normal distribution, some normal distribution, you will find they are very skinny in nature. Some distribution you will find they are large boned. Okay, you will also you can also think here in exponential distribution, it is, you can also see that this is one exponential function, this is another exponential function, this is another exponential function. It has the lambda is equal to 1, it has got the lambda is equal to 4, and it has got the lambda is equal to 10. So these values of lambda, they are actually determining the shape or the type of the exponential distribution. Okay, so that's why they are actually known as the shape parameter. Okay, because they are determining These values are the values of lambda is determining the shape of the exponential distribution. Okay. So what we what we try to do from the maximum likelihood function, suppose you have got some series of data or a set of data you have got. Okay. Now if you plot depending upon the nature of the data, okay, or the if you plot the data graphically, you can understand that which particular distribution you should follow. Okay. Suppose for example, if you are if you consider, suppose if you have taken the data of some arrival rates, okay, in a counter, ticket counter, so you can very clearly understand that this data is suitable for the Poisson distribution. Okay. But if it happens that if you are considering the time, okay, suppose the span or the time between two calls, okay, then you will consider the kind of distribution like exponential distribution. This is a very common question, that what is actually the difference between the exponential distribution and Poisson distribution. Okay, this is a very common question. Poisson distribution is a discrete distribution, but exponential distribution, it is a continuous distribution. And suppose in Poisson distribution, suppose you are having within 1 hour you are getting 5 calls. So 5 calls per hour or 6 calls per hour. Whenever you are focusing on calls per hour or some events per some time or per some volume, then you will apply Poisson distribution. But when you are considering the time span or the volume in between some events, suppose some 1 hour of time between 2 calls, okay, so during that time you will be using the exponential distribution, and along x-axis this is actually being represented. Okay. So anyway, that you can understand if you go through my slides, you can very easily understand that. I'm not discussing those things here. Okay. But the thing is that so you can very, depending upon the nature of the collected data and from your graphical plot, you can understand that which particular distribution I should use, normal distribution or Poisson distribution, or suppose for example the normal or exponential distribution, which particular distribution I should use, you can understand it. But after determining that, suppose you have understood that your data is suitable for the exponential distribution, but you don't know that what kind of exponential distribution is suitable for my data. Okay. And what kind of exponential distribution is best fit for my data, that you don't know. And that's why you need to find out the value of the shape parameter. Okay. What lambda value I will find, that you need to determine, or what mu or sigma value I will find, that you need to determine for a normal distribution. Okay. So how can you do that? Suppose this is the likelihood function for the exponential distribution. Now if you can maximize this particular function, okay, so ultimately you will be ending up, you can find out the value for the lambda is equal to n divided by x1 plus x2 plus ... xn. Okay. So this is the formula by using, you can determine the value of the lambda. You know your n because you have a set of data, so you know your n. You also know what are my x values, the set, the values you in your set, that you also know. So using this formula, you can determine your lambda. Okay. So this procedure is known as maximum likelihood estimation. Okay. So this is, you can say that this is the best possible way to fit the data for a particular distribution. Okay. So this is actually, it has been told here that when we collect data from survey, depending upon the nature, we choose the distribution first. Then we want to fit the data in the best possible way to represent the population. Okay. Then we need to estimate the maximum likelihood for the parameters, because these parameters indicate the shape of the population distribution for the particular case in best possible way. So maximize the likelihood function and find out the formula for the parameters. Okay. Then plug in the values collected from the survey to estimate these parameters. Okay. So in this way, you have seen earlier that in the normal linear or in non-linear regression, sorry, in linear regression, you have seen that we have used the least square method, okay, to find out the best fitted line. Okay, to find out the best fitted line, we have used the least square method. Okay, but in case of logistic regression, we will see that we cannot simply use the least square method. Okay, that is not possible to use. Rather, we can use the maximum likelihood estimation. Okay, in order to find out the constant terms and the coefficients. Okay, so now less than 1 minute, so we can rejoin again. Okay, and we will discuss about the logistic regression. Okay, so Deepika B is asking to find out